And welcome to another episode of the Dynasty Trades HQ podcast. My name is Michael Cipes. You can find me on Twitter at FFBlitz. And I'm here with my partners, Jeremy Browand.
Yeah, hey guys, you can find me on Twitter at DynastyMadman.
And Shane Manila.
Hey guys.
The King of Johns.
King of Johns is here. So usually we let this show stay away from my personal feelings that society-wise. I'll get into funny personal feelings about drugs, hookers, women and such.
Well,
kids.
you are experiencing those things, so
Exactly.
the credibility is already built in.
Exactly. So I have less credibility on this front because I'm a white man living in America. But as a white man, you have to accept that, you know what? Even if your ancestors might not have had slaves and shit like that, that you do benefit from white privilege. If you don't think so, just think about, like, have you ever driven down the street and worried that a cop was going to pull you over because your car looks too nice? And I'm not trying to be all woke. I mean, it's easy to say shit. But as white people, we kind of need to think about these things, and we need to understand why these protests might have turned violent and destructive and turned into rioting this week. Because, I think, rioting generally, it's probably not the greatest thing, but that's how change happens. So just on the change happens thing, I'm going to try to do some things a little different. And I'm looking to volunteer with disadvantaged children, minority kids, offenders, things like that, people that are disenfranchised and don't have a reason to believe that this country is going to treat them right because it hasn't. And that's really all I got to say. Look, if you even have to question why there was rioting and protesting this week, I don't think you understand what a large segment of our population is going through. That's all I got.
I agree with you with what you're saying. I think that you're correct in that people need to be aware of the way the world is. I know, like, we joke about me being over 50 all the time, but I've seen a lot of stuff in my time, and some of the stuff I just don't understand. But hopefully this will all bring about change with people. And I think in this community, we're all talking to each other and we're getting our thoughts out there, and people are coming together, and hopefully it will, cause change. I just feel bad because we always joke around and we always laugh and we're always having a good time. And I know that when we put out our show, we're putting it out for people to be entertained. But I agree that at least for right now at the beginning, we should at least say something.
Yeah,
And we always put this show out with love, understanding, and kindness built in as we put it out there, and hope that shows through. But that's exactly what many people in the world could do with their daily lives. Those three things right there.
Yeah.
And I was listening to the FF Ballers today, and I forget who said it, but one of them said it. He basically said, not saying something is saying something.
Yeah. Because
for too long, a lot of us, as a people, not us specifically, us three, but in general, a lot of us didn't say something. And, that's how evil things continue to happen. At least put that out there. I mean, get that off our chest a little bit. Like I said, man, I'm not saying everything is your specific fault. Everything that's happened in the past isn't my fault. But if I don't do something to correct what's happened and make it better going forward, well, then that is my fault. And
I agree with that 100%. And I also agree with a lot of people saying that get out there and vote, in November, let's do something about changing so many things that need to be changed in this world. So, when you talk about having fun, we are going to talk about trades, and we have an awesome guest tonight. And we always joke around about news happening right before we go to the show. And this is a little bit kind of with what you're talking about and what's going on in the world, because some news just happened a few minutes ago with Drew Brees and the Saints, and Jameis Winston was trending.
Well, because they think Drew Brees isn't going to be quarterback much longer.
Yeah, here's the thing, what it would take for Winston to start this year, with Drew Brees to not be playing.
Yeah. Look, Drew Brees, for everyone that, is getting their back up, standing up for the guy, just look into Drew Brees a little bit. I mean, the guy backs, a church that is for conversion therapy for gay people.
Does he really?
Mm-hmm. And he also, he's part of a Ponzi scheme business. So, look.
I didn't know any of that.
And I'm just saying, look, those are just aspects of his life, right? Just like this is an aspect of his life that he thinks it's disrespectful to the flag. He's wrong. Basically said he still doesn't agree with the kneeling thing. And Michael Thomas followed him.
He unfollowed him.
Tweeted out, he don't know any better.
Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara. He unfollowed him too.
Subtweeted him. So did Emmanuel Sanders. I mean, usually you would say real world shit wouldn't get him. You know what I mean? Like wouldn't affect football stuff. But I don't know, man. This is going to be interesting to watch. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to be very interested to see how this plays out.
The weird thing is it's really about the timing. Whether that is his belief or not, everybody is very sensitive to what's going on. And just the timing of him saying what he said bothered a lot of people. And there's a very big platform right now for everybody to see it. So yeah, like you say, Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, they all unfollowed their quarterback, It was kind of weird because the way I found it all out was because Jameis was trending. And I had clicked on Jameis and there's all these pictures of him like walking into the Saints locker room as the starting quarterback, which the reason it's also kind of the reason I know that's what I'm about to say. Last week on the show, we had Bob Harris on and I actually had sent you a trade.
Well, we talked about how Winston was a buy.
Right.
How Winston is a good value at this point.
But
so before you're going to say what you did, we had a good long talk and Bob was all over that.
Right. And what had happened during the show was I had sent Shane a trade offer for a second round pick for Jameis. So Shane brought it up in the Patreon show to Bob Harris. And Bob's response to Shane was, no, I wouldn't trade him for a second because, he's a golden ticket in case he gets a chance to play. And we discussed it on the Patreon show. So anybody who's not a Patreon, go check out the Patreon show. It was fun with Bob. And nobody could see.
We're ahead of the curve on the Patreon. Check it out. We're a week ahead of things.
But the funny thing is nobody could see the video and Shane is shaking his head, putting his hand over his face, all this kind of stuff.
I mean, because here's the thing, that trade, so you gave up the first.
Well, yeah, but what happened was you declined it because Bob told you to. Not because he told you to, but we discussed it.
Bob didn't order me.
Right. So then you sent me Jameis for a first. And so then what I did was I looked over your roster and I was like, okay, but send me that Ty Johnson. I blanked out. Tyler Johnson. Ty Johnson's the running back from Detroit. I said, send me the rookie Tyler Johnson from the Bucks. So you did. So you sent me that over. So yeah, you're right. So we did finally make a trade, which I sent you my first, and you sent me Jameis and Tyler Johnson. And the other thing too is it's a 14-team super flex where quarterbacks are very difficult to get.
And I like that trade as soon as you made it. And of course it sounds even better today.
Well, that was the fun thing.
That trade, I got a first, which, I felt okay about. It's probably not, it's long term. I know it's probably not the best because I think Jameis would have been a starter not next year.
Which is what we talked about on the Patreon show. Yeah.
2021 is next year.
Yes. 2021 is next year. Yes.
This year has been like a decade.
It's too bad we can't push fast forward, jump to 2020.
Might be a starter in 4 months. So,
exactly.
Yeah, you won that trade.
Well, but the thing about it is, I mean, first of all, you guys all know that I like him and I have him in a lot of leagues, but what we were gonna say prior to what happened tonight with Drew Brees was you did one of those kind of deals where you did that trade with me, but then you piggybacked it into another trade because you took that first that I gave you and traded it to somebody else with another first.
Yeah, so me, I'm always. Well, I was on Hot Sauce with our buddies, Larry, who, what's funny is like I know his real name and I can't call him it. I'm just like Larry.
Nobody calls him his real name. Yeah. Nobody does.
Anyway,
Larry Monkey.
With our boys Larry, Greggles, and Hootens on it, right?
Yep, Brian.
The HQ1 Listener League tribe.
It still owes me a knife.
I need one too.
Did you order one from him?
No, I didn't even know he had. I keep telling him I want to order one. I didn't know he had an actual site.
Yeah, you don't have to pay obviously till he ships it to you, and he'll show you the process along the way and how it looks and stuff. That's what he did for me. But I mean, the knife he sent, man, is seriously worth double what I paid for it. It's awesome.
I want a Walking Dead one where it has the like brass knuckles and the handle and stuff. But whatever.
I'm sure, dude. I know he can make it work.
So yes, you were on their podcast.
So I was on their podcast, and look, if I'm doing our podcast or if I'm on someone's podcast, there's a good chance there's a trade getting made. So me and Greggles, we've had to make no less than 150 trades in the 3 leagues that we're in together. So, I went ahead and shipped him that first, my first, and I picked up a young man by the name of DeAndre Swift.
Sweet.
And it's really cool because we've talked about it before, and until you're in a league like this, you really don't. A lot of us are all in 12-team leagues, but 14 and 16-team leagues are just a totally different animal. It really is, And when
scarcity at quarterback and tight end is just, you can't. It's tough once you get behind the 8 ball to fix that. It's rough. I mean, much easier with running backs and wide receivers, but still, there's scarcity because of the number of teams, and it's tough once you're behind to catch back up.
Yeah. And I've always said on the show, I'm perfectly fine trading away all my future picks because I'll get them back next year around the rookie draft. But so I was happy trading you the first, and then you turned around and trade both of those first for DeAndre Swift. And there's one other thing about this league that people may not realize. This league was an auction league where you didn't have to draft all 30 players with your auction money. So
I'm short as shit on that, right?
Yeah, me too.
I got like 17 players.
I had 13 in HQ5, so I know. So there's a lot of things that get involved in a trade like that. And I think I was very happy with my trade, and I was happy with your trade as well.
Yeah, man. So I like Swift. I think even, being anchored, having that weight of Matt Patricia being your head coach around his ankles for 1 year. Matt Patricia's terrible, so it's going to be a 1 year thing. I think he'll still produce. Look, Carry-On, I like Carry-On. Carry-On, if he was healthy, he could have produced, even splitting touches, even not being a full-on bell cow there. He still could have been a very productive running back. But I think Swift will be. Swift's like Carry-On Johnson, just better at everything that Carry-On.
In everything. You know what's really cool too, because those are listener leagues and it's supposed to be fun with all of us. In HQ5 there was 5 trades done. 3 of them were me and one of them was Jeremy. And then in HQ4, there was 2 trades done. One was me and one was Shane. Or 2 was Shane because one of them was me and Shane. So there's a lot of action going on in there. And those leagues have only been around for a week and a half.
Man, I happily paid, when I got behind in quarterbacks, I happily paid a first round next year, my first round pick for Derek Carr. I didn't even care. I sent it immediately and it was accepted immediately, which was surprising that I didn't get a counter. Not that I would necessarily pay much more than that, but I don't know if I would for Carr. But still, thinking about it, absolutely throw a first at a starting quarterback because I was definitely not starting 2 quarterbacks this year, likely if I didn't get Carr.
It's funny because we discussed my trade in that league last week, which was right before you did, and it involved quarterbacks.
Are you the one who got Teddy Bridgewater?
Yeah. No, I gave Scott Teddy Bridgewater.
I didn't want to offer more than the first, so I wouldn't budge on getting Bridgewater for a first, and I forget what else he wanted, and I didn't do it.
Yeah, I gave him Bridgewater. I gave him Bridgewater in my first for Tua and a 4.
I see.
Yeah, because I also
I'm sorry for a first and something else, and I wouldn't do it, and then I went for Carr right after.
What did you do? You got what?
Which one, me or Jeremy?
Dude, what was you got who for what? You got Tua?
We talked about this last week. I gave Scott Connor. I gave Scott Connor Teddy Bridgewater and a first for Tua and a 4. but I also had a backup deal waiting to go with Mr. Low AHS, where I got Phillip Rivers. So it was a combination deal. Remember, I did it was a two-way combination. We talked about it last week, and
I like that trade for you, by the way. I don't know if I said
Scott
that.
tried to turn around and send me Bridgewater for a first plus, and I wouldn't do it. And then I finally just offered my first straight up for Derek Carr to Sean McCormick.
Yeah. The cool thing was all of that happened in the same day. Yeah, all that stuff happened, but it was last week.
It was a busy quarterback day.
Yeah, exactly. Fun. So our guest tonight, you can find him on so many multiple platforms. He's a TV host on Sports Grid. He's a DFS podcast host at Line Star app. You can find him on, for all you wrestling fans out there, he's on the greatest wrestling podcast in the history of the universe. According to the opening on In This Ring podcast. And, there's a lot of us out there that are wrestling fans. He's also a number one book author, right? He has a new book called The Fantasy Football Black Book 2020. It just came out, I believe, 5 days ago. You can get it on Amazon now. And you can find him on Twitter at Joe Pisapia 17. It's our guest, Joe Pisapia, correct, Joe? Is that how you say your name?
You said it better than almost anybody the first time I've ever heard. I want to say thank you, first of all.
That's great.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I can say it because I'm good with names. Joe Pisapia.
Yeah. This is why I say it, Joe, and not Shane,
It's not that hard when I break it down for people and I say, well, it's the Leaning Tower of what? They say Pisa, and they go, oh, okay. But the problem is, when you're born, and you grow up in the 80s when Little Caesars was a big deal, you were just pizza, and that's fine. My whole life I dealt with that, whatever it is. But no, I appreciate the concern and the help. Hey, what do you want?
Absolutely.
No, I appreciate the effort and more so the success. So.
Well, thanks. Well, I listened to the last 3 or 4 episodes of the In This Ring podcast today, so I heard your name quite a few times. But listen, we're very thankful for you to come on. But the most exciting thing is about this book. Look, it says the first 15 years. So this is the 16th year you've put out this book?
Well, this is the 10th. This is the 10th year. This is the 16th or 15th edition of the Black Book between baseball and football.
Okay.
So yeah, so this is the 10th anniversary because we produced a couple a year. Actually, last year we produced our first trial hockey book for NHL fantasy.
How'd that go?
We're hoping to move into the NBA this year as well, which is incredible. And it started out. I mean, this is a labor of love, man. I mean, I started out 10 years ago writing the Black Book because I got stiffed by a website I was working for, and the other site that I liked writing for closed down. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go out there and I'm going to write a book with all my thoughts and all this relative position value theory that I have that I think really works for me, and I think it'll work for other people. And I thought, hey, maybe I'll sell 25 copies. That'd be cool, right? And then it went to number one in the genre, which was madness. I never expected that to happen. And it was kind of early in the space in Amazon where it was still it was only Kindle books still. And then I would say about 3 or 4 years ago, or maybe I think it's at least 4 now, where Amazon started putting out paperback versions of the books where you could actually physically print a copy, where it exploded. And last couple of years, we were number one in football books. We were ahead of Tom Brady TB12. We were ahead of Joe Namath's book last summer. It was crazy. And it doesn't last all year, but for those 2 or 3 weeks in August, that's awesome. That's the craziest thing ever. And as a Pats fan, there's something bittersweet. When I was ahead of Tom Brady, I almost felt guilty. I was that's my guy. I'm ahead of Tom Brady. But then I saw the check, and I was I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
All right. Fine.
Yeah, for sure.
But what I was trying to do with this series is give people something that, it's very hard nowadays to separate yourself in fantasy because there's so much content out there and everybody's playing at a higher level because all this information's out there. But so much of it is rankings and here's your top 100, here's your top, who cares? That doesn't help me. And even your tiers, if you're really smart and really well opinionated and all that stuff, doesn't help me. I need what the RPV does and the Black Book, and what I try to do is I'm giving you quantified tiers. I'm giving you an understanding of how to take this into an approach, understanding a running back's not a position. RB1 is a position because it's a roster spot, and understanding it's about building core roster strength. It's not about filling positions. It's about understanding and taking a tool like RPV that's adaptable to every format, applicable to every size league you're playing in, and then give somebody this content where we're talking like standalone chapters for PPR drafts and standalone chapters of Superflex this year, how to approach it, and standalone IDP and standalone high stakes and best ball and all the other things, because I feel like now everybody's got their hands in so many different kinds of formats where this is like Lord of the Rings. I always say it's like one book to rule them all. Like that's what I'm going for. Get everything you need for that draft that week, or to continue to just play out the season.
Giving them a process to evaluate something dynamic, which fantasy football is this changing all the time, which is why those rankings are only helpful for like a snapshot in time, like today, for instance. Yeah. And it's that a good tool for evaluating something dynamic, and it's a process type of thing,
and it's simple. Repeat it. And that's the thing. Like, I feel like, and you guys are probably attest to this too, like there's a lot of metrics and things like that that are coming into fantasy, and it's cool, it's great, but can I use it? Can I take that and then turn around and apply it to my roster? And that's where it becomes really difficult. And I wanted to give something to somebody where they can look at it and go, oh, I see. So the fantasy league average of RB1 is here, and Christian McCaffrey is, I don't know, 28% better than the fantasy league average RB1. And then the drop off is to 13 to the next guy. And always, well, you know what? Here's something staggering. This is a number I'd never seen as long as I've been doing this now, a decade plus. Christian McCaffrey last year, his RPV, his relative position value over the average fantasy league RB1 was almost 70%. It was 69%. I've never seen a number that high. It's crazy, madness of how much. And it's part of that is attested to the fact that Saquon Barkley missed time and some other guys didn't perform up to expectations. So like the cavern between one and the rest was so much. And it was the same thing with Lamar Jackson too. But that's what's so great about RPV. It's not just projections. It's projections put in with previous season stats, with 3-year averages. We take, all that into a little bubble, and then we create these percentages where it tells you exactly where the drop-off is, and more importantly, where the negative is. So why am I reaching for a running back here where he's a -10 when I can be reaching for a wide receiver who's a +8, and I can be building a stronger roster for myself? Because that's all fantasy is, right? It's about me being more productive than you as much as I possibly can, and as consistently as I can. And if I can do that, I will be ultimately successful.
And you mentioned RPV a couple times. Do you want to explain to everybody where that came from? Is that something you created, or?
Yeah, there's other value-based drafting systems that are out there, but it's mine. Relative position value, or RPV, is just hyper-focused. And I think that's why it's so effective. Like you don't want to compare all the running backs to each other or anything. You want to compare RB1, because most people in your league are going to have an RB1. You want to look at wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. You want to look at them in groupings, because when you start to look at them in groupings, that's how you can think. What they tend to do is they go out there and they try to fill the spots in their roster instead of trying to create roster strength. And it's funny because it's a very simple idea, and the Black Book has never had any, it's not RotoWire, it's not CBS, it's not ESPN. We've been an independent publication. It's run out of, this is the office. You're looking at it. This is the business, right? I know.
There's the publishing studio right there.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right behind the bobbleheads. But it's like
the Funko Pops.
What happens is people latch onto it, and it's either kind of innate, like they're kind of doing it, they don't realize it, or it's completely blowing their mind. And either way, they're able to use it, and they're all having success with it. And if they weren't, we wouldn't be where we're at. I mean, this is an incredible thing, a story of literally going from, like I said, I wrote the first book while my oldest daughter was napping, and I was on my train rides into New York to teach classes. That's when I wrote the first Black Book, and subsequently many others for those first couple of years. And I did them all just solo. I didn't, couldn't afford to bring in other people to help me. And I would write 400 plus player profiles for baseball by myself. It was madness. Wow. But I knew people were latching onto it, because every year it kept growing, and every year people say, are you doing when's the next one? When's it come out? And it's a testament to the readers and the people, because they have grown this brand. It's like the people's champion. Like we're the people's champion because we're giving something that nobody else is. And I think that is what's so special about it. And the fact that it works and it's working for people and they feel like all of a sudden I'm armed with something that's really useful. And then it's not just like draft, it's evaluating trades. It's all year round. And it's really important that, the draft is just part of it. Like we go so much deeper into everything and so much more hyper focused and in a very digestible way, because at the end of the day, like, I don't love math, but I love counting money. So let's get everybody successful and let's give something to the people that they can use for once.
And that's cool when you talk about like analyzing trades and stuff like that. We have some trades, later on in the show we would go over with you. But one thing you did just mention, you said how you did it yourself. And I see with your new book for 2020, you actually have like a bunch of people in this industry that helped you with the book this time.
Yeah, I've opened up to other contributors because I love this community, and it's a great community of people who work their ass off. And I personally want to give, there's people like Adam Ronis and Elliot Christ and Matt Franciscovich. Matt works for EA Sports now. He used to write for NFL.com, and Adam is one of the best fantasy players out there. He's at Fantasy Alarm right now. He's one of my good friends, but I know like that's a guy every time I'm in a league with him, like it's going to be a war because I know he is so good. Plus he doesn't have any kids to worry about. So I know he's going to be able to spend more time than I can always. But it's like, who do I respect and whose opinions do I respect a lot? And then on top of that, I want to give voices to other people who are not working for ESPN and not working for these big box fantasy places and give them a platform of saying, hey, this person's really good at what they do. And go follow them on Twitter, go find them, because it's an opportunity for them to kind of grow their own personal brand or their podcast and their things. And I love that independent spirit where, you don't have to go to the big box to get the best fantasy content. You really don't. In fact, that's where most people are going. So and you know what, in all fairness, I don't want to throw people under the bus, but some big boxes last year, they had some videos going around about how good Kalen Ballage was going to be. Okay? So like, let's not,
I hear you.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it might not be the best place for you at the end of the day.
Who was that?
Come to
Let
the
everybody
black-
else.
No.
Yeah, I like how Shane wants to know who that was.
Who was that? That was touting Kalen Ballage. Good Lord.
And it is.
Let's just say his last name is like a fruit.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? It is funny that there is so much, like, there's no accountability for anything. Like, everybody can say as many things as they can say as many things as they want, and the one thing that comes true, they'll say, "Hey, look, I said this." Oh yeah, what about the 900 other things you said that didn't happen?
Yeah, but where there's accountability in analysts, because Joe pointed it out. His book's a #1 seller for that. No, but I think there's accountability.
You're right,
you stop knowing the sites. You stop reading books. You stop checking out work from people that you go, wow, this dude's consistently wrong. Like, I need to go follow someone else.
Yeah, but there's people that are living off of one or two tweets that they may have said is what I'm talking. I'm not talking about in general. Yeah.
Well, you know what? But I think it's also, here's the thing. The job of the analyst is simple. The job of the analyst is to arm you with the best possible information. And in fantasy sports, to do it in a really entertaining way, because this, to cross worlds for a moment, if I may, this is sports entertainment, ladies and gentlemen. Like, that's what fantasy is. We create our own little mini drama that plays out every week on Sunday, and we're nuts. The players don't give a crap about. They're making millions of dollars. They could care less, and you're sweating over DK Metcalf dropping the ball in the end zone. Yeah, and it's crazy. Like, that's what we love to do. So it's not enough to give good content. You have to give it in an entertaining way too. And I try to do that on the TV shows. I try to do that on the podcast, because people they can get content anywhere, but they can't get a laugh everywhere. Like, you give them both, people will love you forever. Yeah. It's true, man. It's
no. I laugh. I'm just laughing because that's pretty much our basis of what we do with our show.
business plan for this podcast. That's how
2.5 years ago when
Right.
2.5 years ago when Jeremy and Shane and I pitched this show to do this show, that's what we wanted. We wanted something that was entertaining that would give some people a laugh, because there was so much influence.
No, that's the worst. And there's a lot of great analysts who just are just bad communicators.
Yeah.
Which is, it's fine. Like, not everybody's going to be good at everything. But Shane makes a great point about accountability too. I literally on the last show I just did, we were just talking about, like, I think it's funny if I get something wrong. One year for the baseball book, I was writing up a Dallas Keuchel profile. I'll never forget this. And I said the words, I was like, look, he's fine, blah, blah, blah. These are the reasons why. I go all into like the deep details, all the deep dive. And then at the end of the profile, you'll love this. I wrote, he'll be useful, but it's not like he's going to win a Cy Young or anything. He won the Cy Young. And the next year in the book, I took that clip from last year's book and I put it in the next year's book, and it said, boy, I'm a moron, but you know what? I'm going to hold it to it. I don't think this guy's going to be very good. Sell him. And you know what? He hasn't been good since. So it's not a matter of always being right all the time. There's a lot of egos. And the problem is a lot of these people who do this, they care more about them being right or wrong than they do about your fantasy team. And I give a crap more about your fantasy team succeeding than mine. And that's the difference between me and some of the other dudes who do this. Like, when I hear you won a championship, that's awesome. Like, I won the Super Flex League championship this year, and I beat Adam Ronis, which is impossible to do. And I can't wait to get that belt, because I'm going to wear it and I'm going to hold it over Jake Seeley, and I'm going to make fun of him because he's in that league too. And you know what? That's all fun, but like, it's not nearly as exciting as when I see the people, texting me in January and tweeting at me and, like, hey, won X number of leagues or went to 3 finals and won 4. Like, that's, I won 4 finals and won 3. Like, that's crazy. Like, that is so much more exhilarating than me winning. Problem with a lot of the fantasy analyst community is, like, they're too ego driven about themselves instead of the people's success.
It is cool
when out and say they don't care about your fantasy teams. They don't even make you wonder. They just say they do not care about your fantasy teams.
How is that really good for your brand?
Yeah,
like that. Terrible.
Why would I want to listen to you when you say that? Like, you don't care about my fantasy team? Okay. Well, then why am I listening to you?
Why do I want to listen to you?
Then why am I going to you?
It is cool though when you get those DMs.
When I run listener leagues, I'm in them.
We're up to 5 listener leagues for our show right now, and we're in all of them, the 3 of us.
Yeah, I want to beat the shit out of all of our listeners. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Like, I don't want any of them to beat
come
me.
on.
Doesn't always happen, but
we have a lot of fun listen to Jeremy. We have a lot of fun in our listener leagues, but it is really cool, even if it's 1 or 2 people that send you a DM or an email that say, hey, thanks for that advice, it helped me win. It's so much more rewarding than a bunch of other stuff. And it is funny that you mentioned about your league win, because I see that in your profile on Twitter too, but I didn't mention it in your introduction.
That, right? Joe did say something there, and I'm gonna keep kind of chattering until I remember what the was.
About using it for trades.
I will tell you
about not sometimes not mattering if you're right or wrong. I think.
Oh yeah.
Most of the fantasy community is understanding when you have a good process. And if you have a process that, and you end up being incorrect, well, then they're like, well, look, shit does actually happen. When you blindly just throw shit out there and you're like, I think this because I like the color red, which is basically some of the analysis you get. But you know what I mean? Like, seriously, you break down a player and you're like, well, this is why.
I want to have some drinks with Shane. Like, this is some serious truth, man.
That's funny. Well, you said you're in New Jersey, right? Shane's in Philly, so maybe you guys can do it.
There we go.
I'm going through a divorce, so I'm getting out of the house a lot. So I'm just doing a tour of fantasy football friends.
Oh my God.
Hey, man, I went to school in Philly, man. I lived there for a couple of years. It was a fun town, let me tell you. So.
I like how Joe
and
says
there's somebody on the
you.
other side of divorce, let me tell you. Life is good.
Ah, there you go. That's why he said good for you. Oh my gosh. Well, maybe we should pull it back into the show, or we'll start talking about divorce here.
As long as you
we'll talk about Shane's personal life. It'll be fine.
More? We have to do it more.
Do you know how much we talk about Shane's personal life?
A lot, way too much for a fantasy football podcast. Like, seriously. And I found out people that like work that are under me at work listen to this show.
Oh no, really?
And, yeah, I was like, you're not allowed to do that anymore. No, like.
Oh
That's
my god!
good for you,
Anyway,
man. Not at all.
As long as you have a good process, like Joe has a good process.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. That way to bring it back.
Back.
So Joe, with some of your other platforms, like I said, one of them was DFS. So you do a lot of DFS stuff, or which do you do? Which do you enjoy more? Do you like redraft? Do you like DFS? Do you like Dynasty? What do you like the best?
It's funny, they all have their perks. You know, the great thing about DFS football is the lack of attachment to players. And that's what's so difficult. By just nature, I've been a very big Superflex person for the last couple of years. I've been pushing that format to the masses as much as I can, because I feel like, what are we doing? Like, there's quarterbacks score so much more points than so many other people. They're the most coveted position in the NFL itself, and fantasy should reflect the NFL. And like, where's the challenge? You're gonna play, like, you're in a 10-team league and you're playing one quarterback. What the hell are you doing? Like, that's not hard. Like, let's challenge ourselves. Plus, let's open up the field to some more interpretation. So I love Superflex season long as much as I can get. I got IDP leagues. I try to do everything I can. What's great about DFS NFL is, again, that lack of attachment. So you can get involved with players that you wouldn't want on your season long team, but you could go and say, you know what, man, I want all the shares of Amari Cooper today. I love this matchup. Or and there's a lot of other strategy and another challenge to that. So hosting the DFS shows have been great for LineStar the last couple of years. That's been super fun. I did work for FanDuel for a year or two when they started content back in 2015 before the bubble burst in DFS and all the legal issues happened. But I gotta tell you, like, they each have their own perks, and it's nice to do them both, because I feel like the knowledge you gain on a weekly basis from studying for that week does help you set your other lineups in your season long leagues, and it does filter over into next year's preparation. And I think things like they cross pollinate, and I encourage people not to play big giant DFS tournaments. I encourage them to go out there and play cash games and learn the process of it, because it will make you a smarter player, because your analysis of the matchups starts to bleed over into your season long prep and your lineup setting and some other and trends that you're seeing too. And like, talk about being right and wrong. Look at, some of those guys in the DFS community who only, tweet the screenshots of their winnings. They'll never tweet the screenshots of their losing. That's for sure. Never happened. Show me that. Show me the DFS guy who screenshots.
We're in a league with a few DFS heavy leagues. So,
yes,
we get to see some of the back and forth between them and other DFS guys and the people that follow them. And there's a whole lot of people pumping themselves up but not showing the losses. Not that guys were in the league, because they're all awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, they really are. And they win.
I mean, that's serious. You know me. Look, I'll call people out, because we all know who we're talking about. People, when we're talking about the dude that says he doesn't give a shit about the fantasy team, and then people stupidly still listen.
Okay, all right. We'll bring it back. Hey, but Joe, actually,
this is the first time I've been on a show with you, Shane. This is a dangerous thing.
I mean, I've listened to you on Fantasy Pros with Mike, and we haven't. I've
seen your work.
Yeah.
Well, you should definitely have tags on. I actually on with him on Friday. We're doing a show together.
Yeah, we met him in Canton at the Midwest Fantasy Football Expo and hung out a little bit. He said he'd come on. We haven't synced it up yet, but we're definitely going to have him on. He's great.
Yeah, and Joe, that league that Shane's talking about, that's where we're in with a bunch of people. Matthew Berry, but Bob's in that league, and you were mentioning before we came on the air about Bob Harris and how
that was before. Sorry.
Yeah, it was
I just
before.
assumed you were taping that. That was good stuff.
No, listen, I was taping it, and as long as Joe's okay with it, I'll put that in the show. What we had mentioned about Bob, because what you had said about Bob is.
I'll say it again here. It's very important to have people who mentor you in this industry.
Yeah.
And Bob puts out publications for a living. and he never saw me as somebody who was like, he only saw me as someone he liked, that he wanted to help. And I can't repay Bob for that. I mean, Bob always gave me a platform, always, when I was hosting on Sirius XM at 10 to 1 a.m. Following football diehards, and I was nobody, and I was not getting paid, and I was working for free just to get, so I can get some knowledge of the industry and trying to, break into radio. There was him and Mike Degman and not do anything. But the other part of it was Bob and him giving me a chance and like cross streaming me with the other audiences and giving me a platform and introducing me to some of their listeners. And I never forgot that. And I knew that if I ever had that opportunity, I would do the same thing for other people. And it's huge. It's a big community. There's lots of room for different voices. And when you have great people like they're being, fantastic examples of what it is to, embrace you into a community, it doesn't get much better than those guys, especially Bob.
And it's funny, the reason I wanted you to mention it is because we feel the same way here at Dynasty Trades HQ. Bob was one of the first people that came on as a guest for us, and he really spoke very highly about us to a lot of people, and I think he really helped us as well. So,
and when Scott Barrett was putting together the DFB Invitational, asked if I had any names I wanted to include on the list of potential invitees, and Bob was the first name I gave him. And he goes, "I love Bob." First thing he said was, "I love Bob," and he made the cut right away. I'm sure maybe Scott already had him on the list, but yeah, he's been good to us for sure. He's down to earth and not afraid to help people, which is great. I mean,
I don't think anyone that's ever spoken to Bob or met Bob has been like, "I don't like that guy."
I was just going to say,
I'm a real asshole.
I don't know anybody that's ever said that. And and even when we spoke to him last week, I mean, especially even like on Facebook, where my wife and I are friends with him on Facebook. Be Bob Harris. You what? What'd you say?
I said I want to be Bob Harris when I grow up. That's always
and
that's my aspiration is to. Because what does Bob do? He sits around with his cats, and then he goes and he travels to Italy, and he's going to all these places, and then he works really hard through football season, and then he's out in Spain, and then he's doing like he's got this, but he's such an incredible dude, and he's so and like Bob and I cross on a lot of things. We cross on music. Bob actually came to one of my combat classes when I was teaching combat when he was visiting in New York, and he actually came in to hang out and like watch one of the classes and stuff. And he's just that kind of a human being, and I just like that's we need more of that. Those are the guys you want to listen to. And still, this is a true story. Every Sunday morning, I would be driving to the Meadowlands to host the NFL pregame show for Sports Grid. So I'm getting up at like. I'm leaving the house at 5:30 in the morning to get there because it's TV. You got to get there early and all that stuff. And they're doing the replay at that hour on Sirius XM NFL channel of Bob and Mike. And every Sunday I would listen to that show on my drive in, and that would start of mentally preparing me that early hour in the morning to go out and do the show. And that's the thing. It's like, and I would always tell Bob, I was like, "Hey, great stuff with this guy." And he knows I'm listening. And he knows and it was weird because then he would have me on Saturday when they record it. And then like, sometimes I hear myself driving and I'm like, well, this is no good.
This is weird.
That's like the weirdest thing. You're driving in your car and like, you're looking and you're talking in your car, but you're not moving your mouth. It's a weird thing. It's very strange.
Hard to get used to.
And it's funny. I travel a lot for some other job that I do, and Bob is one of the guys we cross paths at airports. But I've done the same thing as you. I leave around 5:00 in the morning, and when you leave that early, that's what's on Sirius is the replay of Die Hard. So I've listened to his show a lot of times on the way to the airport before I end up flying out of town and stuff. So yeah, I know what you're saying, and he's a great guy. We actually met with him last year in Canton, and we were going to do it again this year, but I know we've spoke about it a few times on the show. For those of you who didn't see, the Canton show has been postponed this year, so it's going to be moved till next year. So we will be there next year at the show. Have you ever done one of those shows over there where they do the serious draft and they do all that stuff?
I've done other ones. I'm in the flex leagues every year. Jake's league, Jake Seeley's league from the Athletic, who's a good friend of mine. So I always do that one. So I'm always there for the New York ones. the problem with that one in Canton is it's always the same weekend as my youngest daughter's birthday. So it's just not happening. So,
That's not working.
Like, one of these years, I think one of these years she'll probably actually want to take the ride and go. Like she's 8, but like she's starting to like football a little bit. So I don't know. I think one of these years I might be able to convince her, be like, hey, it'll be fun. We'll do the radio thing. We'll be fun, And she's older, but it looks like a fun weekend for sure. I see like pictures of Mike and Marcus and all my my guys that I love so much in this industry there. So I've been invited. I can never go, unfortunately. Just like, it's like always that third week in August, like before, it's like
you have to want to go.
It's the third week in August.
Bring her next year.
Not in Canton. My joke's always that other than the Football Hall of Fame and Bob Lung's house, there's no reason to really go to Canton.
I heard there's
not a lot of distractions, man.
Going on. Yeah, there's always something in Bob Lung's house going on, I'm sure, though.
Well, definitely come next year and bring her, and she can sit at our table and she can broadcast live.
Girl. She doesn't want to come to that shit.
Of course she can. We'll put her on the radio. We'll put her on the podcast.
When she's 13 and she's a teenage girl and she's like, I don't want to hang out with you on my birthday.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Instead of hanging out with Dad, she could come do our show with us.
I might be able to convince them to do like a little round trip of Ohio. Like maybe we could go like do Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and like make a weekend of it or something like that. Yeah. There's always a way. There's always like my daughter's also big into wrestling like I am. So I'm hoping, like, we've been, countless shows. NXT, we go every year to MSG to see the day after show of day after Christmas show. We've been to SummerSlam in Brooklyn. Like, we've done all of them. So, we'll always travel for that too. So we're trying to, if I can tie something else to it that they're interested in, I might be able to get it done. You never know.
You already named,
just getting out.
You named everything in Ohio there is to do. There's 2 things. You're making a weekend
so full of shit, man. But he's fun living in Ohio than where you are.
He left out Waffle House though.
Only a guy from Philly would say that.
He left out Waffle House. But hey, Joe, were you gonna come down to Tampa for WrestleMania this year? That would have been cool. We were gonna go.
No, because the show is too goddamn long.
Yeah,
it is 12 hours long. Yeah, it's not. No, it's more than it's nuts. Like. Royal Rumble, something where I told us that one year we're gonna fly out for one because they always wanted to go to that. And I said, but WrestleMania is so damn long, man. Like it's long for an adult. Like you're just sitting there and it's like, all right, by like hour 8, like I feel bad whoever's main eventing always. It's always like a letdown by the time you get there. So in a weird way, I kind of like the 2-day WrestleMania thing they did this year.
Yeah.
But we did do SummerSlam. We were actually in the building, the whole Becky Lynch turn. We were there for that one in Brooklyn, which was awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
Which very cool. Yeah. So but we're like they're super into NXT right now, so that's like more on their radar even.
Yeah.
So not
my
AEW,
son,
huh?
No. Well, yeah, no, he talks AEW too. No, but okay. I was just gonna.
No, we do AEW, we do New Japan, we talk everything. Like,
and
Tim
he does it all.
Who's the editor of the Black Book, who actually started the podcast with me, had to leave because he took a job working for XFL, so he couldn't do it anymore because of interest. Can't talk about wrestling and work for Vince McMahon. I know, right? So Nate Bush took over, who is a fantastic guy. Got a great Southern.
He's really good.
Yeah, who was a friend of the show. He does announcing down in West Virginia area of some independent wrestling. But we talk about everything. And Tim and I actually, when New Japan was in town in the Garden a couple years ago, I think was it last summer or 2 summers ago? I don't know, like time's blurring for me.
Yeah.
But we were there for the big New Japan show with Ring of Honor, that G1 Supercard, which was fantastically fun, man. So, but I went to school in Philly, so I was at WrestleMania 15 with all my friends, Rock vs. Stone Cold. We were there for that one. We were there during the height of ECW days, so we saw a bunch of like crazy stuff, man.
It's legalized like abuse.
Yeah. It's legalized, and I'm not the biggest fan of it. I like the art form of the work more than 2 guys just like hitting each other with shovels, but well,
like New Jack
at the time.
New Jack
when you're
like when New Jack is like one of your bigger stars, like that dude was literally trying to kill people. Like he just threw people off scaffolds. Like,
dude, I did a show down here in Miami. I did a show down here in Miami with New Jack and Sandman.
Dude, he stabbed a guy with a fork.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's that. I forgot. Yes, he did. I didn't even realize that until I saw the new show on Vice. Dark Side of the
Yeah,
Ring.
yeah. Dark Side of the Ring. We did a show down here in Miami with New Jack and Sandman, and like he was like stapling shit in his head. You know what though, Joe? I live down here in Miami. My son, and he's 16 now. He likes wrestling, but the very first show he ever went to was WrestleMania down here in Miami. So that was the very first live show he ever went to. So it was that was a great way to get him started into going to live performances.
Not ECW. That would have been a terrible. You should never take a child to ECW.
No, Joe's talking, and there's no sound and there's no anything at all. Joe.
Yeah, I was like no.
Yeah, there's no Joe. We're not. Yeah, Joe, we don't have any sound for you at all.
I can hear you guys fine. Can you hear me?
It's still really much of a delay, and there's your face and everything.
It's weird
and then
because I'm hardwired. The only thing I can think of is there's massive
really
electrical storms going on outside.
That's got to be it.
Probably what's going on right now.
It's got to be
hardwired. I mean, this is what
He's got to be like 10 minutes away from me. We had a tornado.
It's really weird, too, because, we're seeing his voice and his lips, and there's no sound. Joe, thank you very much for joining us. And, before we go, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you, where they can get your book, where they can do everything with you?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I guess there's some massive electrical storms going on in the New Jersey area, so the feed's been a little weird. But I'll say this: I appreciate the time and you guys having me on, and hopefully next time we'll talk more football players, individual guys. But you can get the book over on Amazon. You can get the hard copy of the Fantasy Black Book 2020. You can also get the Kindle version, and in a few weeks the Apple iTunes version will be available. But most people like the paperback. Believe it or not, people still want to hold it in their hand, and I'm grateful for everybody out there. I'm grateful for you guys giving me some of your time tonight.
No, Joe.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, Joe, thank you very much. And it was all broken up again, and we understand with your storms and everything, but everybody go to Amazon, get the Fantasy Football Black Book 2020. It's there now. Yep. I believe what Joe was saying, that eventually it'll be on Kindle and iTunes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it is. No, you can get it on Kindle, and he said, a lot of people want the paperback version. I think that's already available, he said. And
we really appreciate your time, and everybody go check him out on Twitter. And also his other podcasts, and we really appreciate it. And next time, hopefully, we'll have some good weather. But thank you so much for coming on, Joe. Joe is awesome, and I know that you want to run away. Hold on, just wait. Let's wrap this all up real quick, because the storms may end up in your area too. So listen. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll jump on a Patreon show, and we'll do those rest of those trades if you want to. So tell everybody about our Patreon account.
Yeah, we got a Patreon account, but I don't even feel like getting into that.
Okay, cool.
Week. So, no, hold on. So instead of donating money to a Patreon account, go donate money to bail funds across the country for protesters. Do that this week.
There you go. Yes. No, listen, we've had some serious talk tonight, and we've had some fun talk, and we've had some messed up talk based on the storms that Joe had. So Joe was a great guest, and he told us, I don't know if you guys heard it, but he'll come back when hopefully the weather's better, and we'll do this again. So thank you for listening. Go check out our Twitter account at DynastyTradesHQ. Check out our iTunes account and give us a rate and review at DynastyTradesHQ. And we're going to jump on a Patreon thing real quick before Shane falls asleep. So thanks for listening, and say goodbye, everybody.
Hey, gang, we'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, bye.